Welcome to Nightique. I'm Edward St. Pé. Well, a very interesting show for you tonight. We've got a ghostwriter with us. Have you ever thought of writing a book? You know, many writers use the services of a ghostwriter. Well, we have one with us tonight. We'll talk to Wendy Carter about her latest projects and how you can get in touch with her. And also, we're going to talk to Jerry Mitchell, the investigative reporter from the Clarion Ledger. Stay tuned.
Glasses and contacts. You need them to see, but they put such a strain on your life. Due to new advances in vision improvement technology, LASIK is now affordable for almost everyone, with procedures starting as low as $299 per eye.
Well, welcome to our program. This is Nightique, and you can see more at nightique.com. Wendy Carter is with us.
Hello.
And nice to meet you, Wendy.
Very nice to meet you too.
Now, Wendy is an author and also works as a ghostwriter.
That's right.
So it's good to know that there's a ghostwriter here in our state. That I know that there are a lot of people who have a book inside of them. Maybe they need some assistance, and that's what a ghostwriter does, right?
Exactly.
So tell us about your experience. First off, let's talk a little bit about ghostwriting. What does that really entail?
Well, it depends upon the person who wants to write the book, how much interaction they would like or how much help that they want. Sometimes it'll be a situation where someone has an idea for a story and they'd like to have someone actually do the whole writing for them. In another case, they will have actually written a lot of the book themselves and they need to have someone come in and work on putting it in a format that will actually work, change some of the pitch and the pace, and go in and change the language and work on dialogue and some of that sort of work that needs to be done in order for it to be a marketable book. So it just, again, depends on the project and what needs to be done in order to put it in to the format that will actually be ready to sell.
So if a person out there in our viewing audience has a book that they want to get out and they maybe or a little ways or maybe a long ways toward getting something on paper, you could help them finalize it.
Yes, absolutely.
I see. Tell us about the changing marketplace. Of course, in the years past, there was one thing, a book, you know, physical book. Today we have ebooks, right?
Yes, that's very popular. A lot of people would rather have something that they can take with them on the fly, use with their iPads or their tablets or something like that. So you can do so many things now. A lot of people are able to publish their own books and have it available on ebook. So anyone almost can have something published pretty easily.
And then there are multiple venues, like we have Kindle, right?
Yes.
And also we have the Apple version of their ebook, I guess. And so there's a lot of action in that market sector, right?
There is, and you can have your own work available on eBay, and you can have it on Amazon, so all of those markets are available.
And you could be a ghostwriter for somebody for any of those applications.
Absolutely.
Okay, give us some practical examples of ghostwriting here in Mississippi. You've worked with some folks here, right?
I have. I'm actually working with Richard Schwartz, who is amazingly creative. He has a series called the Underdog Detective Series, and it's named that because the main character is Jack Kendall. He is a detective, and he is the type of guy that will always help the underprivileged and those who just really need to have someone help them, even when it's not to his benefit. So Jack is the main character in 2 of novels that Richard is expecting to have come out later this year.
So you are working with him on that?
Absolutely.
Can you tell us one of the books? I know we had an image of one of the covers, right?
The cover that you have is for a book that is called Pearl River Mansion. There you go. And that is a book, that's actually the second one that's going to come out. And that is a story that is about a couple that has twins. One is Cody and one is Rachel. Those are 3-year-old twins. And unfortunately for the girl, she is very much neglected by her parents. But there's a tragedy that takes place and murder, of course. What story would be complete in a mystery murder without that? So there's so many plot twists that happen. Every time you think you know what is going to take place, it absolutely goes the other direction. And
so what makes a good story?
I think it's 2 things. You have to have a complex plot. It can't be something that the audience can figure out, that the reader is going to absolutely be able to know what the end is going to be or where the next turn is coming. And I think the other part of it is that the characters have to be real. They have to be realistic. And I think they have to be deep. If it's something surface, it's just not as interesting. It's something that you really want to take your time and develop. And Richard is very much about both of those things.
Wow. That's a different side. We didn't know that Richard was an author, a writer.
He's got so many great ideas. Yes, he's very
really
creative.
Interesting. That's good to know. Now, your email address, let's get it on the screen. It's Wendy at WLC-enterprises.com. So anyone out there that might have an interest in procuring your services to help them get the book finished, you can help them, right?
Yes, they can certainly send me an email and we can take a look at the project and see what they're doing, and I can certainly give them some suggestions along the way.
That's great. So I hope that, I know we have a lot of writers. We have a history of great writers in the state, right?
Yes.
So maybe some might just need a little help, right?
Yes.
Okay, now, aside from being an author and a ghostwriter, you also have been working on another project. Tell us about this other big project you've been working on.
Yes, I actually published it in 2010. It is a project that is called the Tetra Scroll.
The Tetra Scrolls.
Yes, and it is an actual parchment scroll that is a non-denominational Bible timeline of all the major events from Genesis to Revelation. And there's just an image of it, although when you actually see it, it's on parchment paper and an actual scroll that is about 28 inches wide by 75 inches long.
After the break, we'll set one up so we can show the folks what the actual scroll looks like.
Okay, great. And the idea behind it is that many people, when they read the Bible, they have a hard time keeping track of the order of events. And you can see things electronically, you can do that, but there's nothing like being able to see the whole Bible unfurled before you in one place. So it's designed that no matter what event you were looking at, you're able to see the approximate years that the events took place. You can see how many years from Adam. You're able to see who the world rulers are at that time. And just because you can see everything in one place, you have a perspective that you can't get any other way.
Okay, well, we'll take a look at the actual scroll after the break. So thank you for being with us, Wendy. Wendy Carter, you're watching Nightique. We'll be right back with the actual Tetra Scroll after these words.
Since 1849, Carter Jewelers has been a part of Jackson's rich history. Over 163 years later, we've not only survived, Carter Jewelers has flourished. From generation to generation, we've established a tradition of excellence. Our reputation is built on customer satisfaction, service, and trust. Every piece of jewelry is handpicked, so you know you're getting the best value.
Nobody says I do like we do at Carter Jewelers.
Come see us and be part of our history.
Okay, we're back. Wendy is with us, Wendy Carter. Wendy, explain to us what this is.
Okay, this is the Tetra Scroll, and at the top of the scroll you'll see the Tetragrammaton, which is why it is named that. Those are the 4 Hebrew letters which you would read from the left to the right, I'm going the other way, and that's Yod He Vav He, which represents the name of the Father in Hebrew. And here you'll see all the events from Genesis going straight down to Revelation. You'll see horizontal lines which represent the 1,000-year periods of time. You'll see here are the timelines of the patriarchs, which show you the birth and the death lines. That's very important because it shows you information that typically when you read the Bible you would not see. For example, when you see the time of when Noah died, you're able to see that Abraham was living before Noah died. That's not something you would pick up just in reading. You're also able to see that his son Shem died. Before he died, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob were all living on the earth. That's why we have the accounts of the flood that we do. One of the things that I wanted to show you today, which is just an amazing piece of information that was able to be seen once we were able to put the Hebrew reckoning of time column next to the Gregorian equivalents, is that in 6 steps, you're able to go from the reign of King Solomon all the way up to the creation of Adam without ever leaving Scripture. So we'll do that quickly, and if someone wants to contact me after the fact, then I can be happy to give them the scriptures involved. But here we go. We'll start here in the year 970, which is when David died and Solomon begins to rule. You go down to the 4th year of his reign, which is in 966, and the scriptures tell us that's when he began to build the temple. And in 1 Kings chapter 6, verse 1, it also tells us that that is exactly 480 years to the day of the Exodus. So we take this year of 966 and we add 480 years and we come up to the date of the Exodus. That year is 1446. From there, we're able to go to the scripture here in Exodus, which tells us that that is exactly 430 years to the day of when Abraham was given the prophecy of the 400 years that his seed would sojourn in a land that is not theirs. Now, what has happened in the past, because we only had the one column of dates, is that people didn't know how old Abraham was when he got that prophecy. But by having the two columns side by side, we're able to start from this column now. It's a very well-known fact. The Hebrews have known this forever, and anyone who can take the Bible and just add up the dates of how old people were when they had their children, we're able to see that Abraham was born 1,948 years from Adam, which is interesting, 1948. That was when Abraham was born. We also know that he was 75 years old when he left to go to Canaan. That's in the scripture as well. Well, when you compare the year that he went into Canaan when he was 75, and we've come up this direction, the 430 years from the Exodus, those two dates are only 5 years apart, which tells us that Abraham was 70 years old when he got that prophecy.
So now this scroll, this is something that people who are studying the Bible would be interested in. I guess
Yes.
it's a very diverse audience that would be interested in this. Huh?
Yes, anyone who studies the Bible would do that, because this opens up the doors to a lot of things. Because not only do you have the history of mankind from Adam, but you also have the secular events, which is going to have all the top 10 religions of the world. They can see exactly when those came in. But just in one more step from where we were, the 70 years, when we find out that's how old Abraham was, all we have to do at that point is to add the 1,948 years from that, and we get Adam's creation. Now,
Okay.
I know we did that quickly.
Well, yeah, I mean, we've transversed a lot of territory
We
here in
did.
this last few minutes. Now, this scroll is available through your company, right?
Yes, it is.
And what is the name of the company again?
Yes, it's Bible Scrolls International.
And can they reach you through your email address?
Yes, they can. Or they can go to tetrascroll.com.
tetrascrolls.com, and your email is Wendy,
Yes, at WLC-Enterprises.
Oh, and I think we can put it on the screen, right? So that we, hopefully our viewers will contact you. Now, your ghostwriting service is also available.
Yes.
Which is really something very, I think, rare here around these parts. So I hope that there will be some writers that will contact you.
Yes, and I'm sure that someone will have questions on what I just did. That information is on the website as well, at
Tetrascrolls.com. Okay, good.
Right, and then they'll be able to see a little bit more about what is included on the scroll.
Well, Wendy, thank you for coming.
My
I appreciate
pleasure.
it, and we're looking forward to Richard Schwartz's book.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
we'll be watching, then we'll have to have Richard on the show.
Yes, he would
Well,
like
thank
that.
you. Thank you for coming.
Okay, my pleasure.
And thank you for being with us for this segment. And we've got Jerry Mitchell from the Clarion Ledger coming up next, so stay with us.
You belong here. You belong here. Take my hand and share this land. You see that you belong here. You belong
Well, welcome to our show. This is Jerry Mitchell from the Clarion Ledger. And
Hey,
Jerry,
Ed, how's it going?
good. Welcome back to the program.
Good to be here.
You know, we talked a number of months ago
Right.
about the situation at the Mississippi prisons.
Right.
And since then, of course, a lot has happened.
Yeah, it has.
Can you give us an update?
Well,
as to
sure. We had a series about some of the problems in prison, some of the corruption and various other things going on, killings that were going on with alleged assistance by officers and things like that. But I guess less than 2 weeks after our series ran, then the Commissioner of Corrections, Chris Epps, was indicted on corruption charges, basically, shorthanded. And just the other day, he pleaded guilty to a couple of those corruption
I've got
charges.
the Clarion Ledger.
Yeah,
This is the
that's
headline
it.
here.
That's it.
And that's a big event in Mississippi.
It's pretty big. That's one of the bigger guilty pleas in corruption that I've seen in my time here in Mississippi, I guess since '86.
And he had been a commissioner for many years.
Yeah, quite a number of years, more than a dozen years. So, I mean, was originally appointed by Ronnie Musgrove, and so he had lasted, and I think how many administrations he's lasted through. That's pretty impressive. I mean, really, you think about it from that perspective, that he lasted that long. A pretty agile guy, you know, politically, obviously.
You know, if there's a long history of potential corruption there, how do you last that long?
Yeah, well, it's a good question. It's a good question. I think corrections is one of those jobs that maybe only a few people really want. I don't know. I don't know if that's it or not, but obviously he was very capable in a lot of ways, and did the job in such a way that people seemed satisfied. And
I guess one question that comes to mind, if this type of thing can go on at that level in state government,
sure.
Are there other areas of state government that are corrupt?
Well, that's an interesting question. Now, I can't say that what I'm getting ready to talk about indicates corruption, but one of the things that this thing has kind of helped to shed light on is the practice of no-bid contracts, because a lot of these contracts that he was getting bribes or kickbacks on, allegations are that he had $2 million worth of kickbacks and bribes.
Okay. Explain the
What was
no-bid
going on.
process.
Yeah, the
no-bid
no-bid,
contract.
basically every time you're a state entity, you have to bid a contract beyond a certain amount. I can't remember what the minimum amount is, like let's say $10,000. Beyond that amount, you have to bid it. You have to send out a bid and people bid on it, and you pick whatever the best
If
bid
it goes
is.
over a certain amount.
Exactly.
Uh-huh.
It goes over whatever that amount is, and you have to bid. Well, there are quite a number of no-bid contracts that we totaled it up, and it was like $6 billion in recent years in no-bid contracts. So that's a lot of no-bid contracts, and some of them, you know, appear to be like friends of, you know, this agency or that, you know, that agency, and different things like that. And then some of them you're just going, well, why didn't they just bid it? You know, it seemed legitimate, and you're just going, well, why didn't they bid this instead of making it a no-bid contract? Sometimes they're able to do that on what they call an emergency basis, like, you know, we need this right away and we don't have time to bid it, and we kind of understand that. But, you know, when it's beyond that, it's something that there's really no reason not to bid it. It's kind of questionable, I think.
Seems like that would invite corruption.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. It's certainly good old boyism, if not outright corruption, yes.
So he has pleaded guilty. What will be the consequence now?
Well, he is expected to be sentenced in June. The typical protocol for this is in federal court, and what happens is there's a probation office gets involved, and they make a report, and the sentencing guidelines kind of come into effect as well. But probably the main factor is going to be what the federal prosecutors recommend. And what they'll recommend in terms of sentence will be based on his cooperation, which he's been apparently cooperating for a while, from what I gather.
Okay, we're going to take a break and come back. I want to ask you, what does cooperation mean? Okay, we'll be right back with Jerry Mitchell from the Clarion Ledger after this.
Since 1849, Carter Jewelers has been a part of Jackson's rich history. Over 163 years later, we've not only survived, Carter Jewelers has flourished. From generation to generation, we've established a tradition of excellence. Our reputation is built on customer satisfaction, service, and trust. Every piece of jewelry is handpicked, so you know you're getting the best value.
Nobody says I do like we do at Carter Jewelers.
Come see us and be part of our history.
Well, Jerry Mitchell from the Clarion Ledger is with us, and Jerry, thank you for being here with us.
Sure.
We're talking about the guilty plea that was recently entered by
Right.
Chris Epps, which is the former commissioner of
Corrections, yeah.
corrections here in the state. So now sentencing will
Right.
be upcoming in June. What determines the type of sentence a person gets?
Well, one of the main factors, there are a number of different factors that come into play, and let's just talk about the main one, and then I can mention some of the other ones. The main one probably is going to be his level of cooperation. In other words, like the federal prosecutors will say, we feel like Commissioner Epps has been a great help, and he's helped us uncover other corruption, et cetera, and therefore we recommend a sentence of X. Let's say 5 years. I have no idea what it would be, but let's say something like that. Then the judge has the option. He's not required to sentence to that level, whatever that is, but he certainly can take that into account. Other kinds of things that come into play are, at least in the federal sentencing guidelines, are the money, basically. And obviously, we're talking about a lot of money, $2 million in bribes. Cecil McCrory, of course, that's a different case, involved like who also pleaded guilty, involved like $3 million, I think. Anyway, so it's a lot of money.
So the cooperation would mean perhaps enlightening the prosecutors as to other corruption?
Yeah, well, or outright helping them try to, let's say he wore a wire and went undercover and went and talked to some people, perhaps people maybe that have given him bribes in the past or others or whatever, and get them on tape. That kind of thing. I mean, I don't know what they're doing, but I'm just saying that those are the kinds of things.
What's the expectation that there will be other indictments?
The expectations are that there will be other indictments.
So this is not over yet?
Oh no, we've just started. This is going to be very fascinating to watch as it unfolds. The state auditor, Stacey Pickering, has indicated that there probably will be other indictments, and I anticipate that's going to be correct. And I think it's going to, as we're going to see it, it's kind of already begun to unfold. We had a case down on the Mississippi Gulf Coast. Unfortunately, the county supervisor down on the Gulf Coast committed suicide. He was charged and committed suicide. So
Well,
it was sad.
that was connected to this case?
Yes, it was.
So, so
I don't know that it directly involves Commissioner Epps, but it was part of this investigation.
the same investigation overall?
Yeah.
I see. So,
So there may be, say, jails. I know that we've done some stories. There are different people that have resigned or they've canceled contracts and different things like that involve jails. And of course, there are jails in every single county in this state. So
I understand that the governor has a program or a board or a
task
group,
force.
a
Yes,
task force.
Yeah, and they're looking at, they were appointed really just to look at the contracts. We're talking about these no-bid contracts, and really we're appointed to kind of look at those contracts that the Department of Corrections has, and maybe more broadly, are there like no-bid contracts? What should happen? Should there be any changes in the law, that kind of thing? But interestingly, the task force itself has taken on to having public hearings. So this is going to be very interesting. So this weekend we'll have the first public hearing, and then there'll be one next week in Jackson.
A public hearing. So the public's
Basically,
invited?
the public's invited. Let's say families of victims who've been killed, let's say, or crimes committed against families of those who have loved ones behind bars. People maybe that have some kind of connection to some of these vendors or other kinds of people, or with MDOC.
This task force will try to get information to make
Right.
recommendations?
Yeah, I gather they're in the position of just information gathering at this point. And of course, we have written quite a bit about the kinds of things that are going on behind bars, and people probably don't have any awareness of, you know, various corruption. The gangs are a huge problem inside prison, despite the fact that Commissioner Epps denied that there were any kind of problem. You know, they do have a serious problem with that. They do have a serious problem with recidivism and other things like that, despite denials.
Some of the murders that were committed,
Yeah.
there was some alleged potential cooperation with guards.
Yeah,
you know.
guards popping locks or opening doors.
Anything happen with that? Did
No,
any
well,
of
the
these guys-
FBI's been investigating in one of those cases, and we'll just see what happens. I know there are other cases too that it's going to be interesting. I mean, because Mississippi Department of Corrections has never recommended for prosecution any single case involving an officer, correctional officer, either for direct assault or enabling assault or enabling a killing. So it's going to be interesting to watch that unfold.
Well, after the sentencing, and as we go forward with more activities
Right.
regarding this investigation, will you come back and
Oh,
talk again?
absolutely. We'll come back. I'm sure we'll have more to talk about.
It's always good to see you, and thank you for taking the
Thanks,
time
I appreciate it
to
very
come
much.
on this program, Jerry.
Absolutely.
Jerry Mitchell from the Clarion Ledger, and thanks for being with us on this edition of Nightique. We hope to see you next time. You can also see these archive shows at nightique.com. Have a great evening.